The movie takes off from a flashback to Abby's last birthday. Abby and Hank arrive at a dilapidated home, deep in the woods. Hank has planned a cozy, quiet celebration with just the two of them. He reveals to Abby that the house is a gift to her and has belonged to his family for a very long time, though it seems they haven't quite inhabited it for a while. Fast forward to the present. We find a paranoid and lone Hank blasting a hole through the front door of the same home with his gun. He opens the door to see if he had gotten what he feared to have been lurking outside, but there is nothing. The next morning, he wakes up on the couch with which he had used to block the front door. He walks past a note from Abby as he fixes himself his morning coffee. As he leaves the house to get his mail, we catch a glimpse of the numerous scratch marks the door had suffered on the outside. As he proceeds to his mailbox, he takes his trusted rifle with him. He finds use for the gun when a moving car almost hits him, prompting him to shoot at it in a fit of rage. After he receives his mail and heads back home, he calls Abby's phone number. Over voicemail, he begs Abby to come back, then reveals how some thing had been tormenting him every night since when she had left. The thing had been incessantly scratching at his door as if trying to gain entry into the apartment. An officer, Shane, pulls up to his driveway. When he tells the officer about his plight, the officer dismisses it, claiming it must have been a bear, just like every other person he had told about it. The officer seems to believe he is going crazy. The officer's concern, however, is more personal than the others, as Hank had dated his sister, Abby, for 10 years. He unsuccessfully tries to convince Hank for his own good to quit waiting for Abby to come around. As the movie goes on, we continue to see more flashbacks. Hank remains on a continuous lookout for the monster and even tries to get a picture of it to prove to Shane, but he's unsuccessful. Eventually, he enlists the assistance of his hunting buddy Wade to help him search the woods for the monster. They search deep into the woods with no success. Hank finally vents to Wade about Abby's sudden disappearance. He theorizes that she must have gone to Miami where she had her college education, and that she must have left to reunite with her old boyfriend there. Wade expresses genuine empathy while subtly attributing the whole monster chase to Hank losing his mind over Abby. That night, Hank set up a bear trap for the monster and waited patiently, hoping that he'd catch it. His trap did momentarily catch the thing, but the monster had pried itself out of the metallic trap, breaking it up. He goes off to Shane's to show him, but just like every other proof he had tendered, Shane waves it off as him being crazy. Soon, Abby arrives, as sudden and randomly as she had left. Oddly enough, she reveals to Hank that she plans on having friends over to celebrate. Hank is initially skeptical of having people over with the monster crisis and all. That night, they stay awake to watch for the monster. Hank finally asks the question that had been on his mind right from the very moment he had discovered she had left. True to his speculations, she had gone to Miami. It was, however, for a college reunion that she hadn't been able to convince him to accompany her to. In contrast, Hank gave a narration of how he had nearly lost his mind over the thought of losing her, the lengths he had gone to keep her disappearance a secret, and how word had spread all through the town that he was losing his mind. She admits to having not returned his calls or voicemails on purpose, because his reaction was very predictable. He'd tried to convince her to come back. She revealed that from the onset, when Hank had first brought her to this home, that she had never imagined she'd spend the rest of her life constricted in the town of Barley. The clock hits midnight, and it's starting to seem like the monster is never going to show up. So Abby gets up and heads to bed. It's starting to seem the monster all along was the metaphoric substance of Hank's fear of reality and a mental longing for something new and exciting to hunt. The next day, their friends show up for the celebration. Present at the dining table, we see Officer Shane and his wife, as well as Wade and his wife. They drink and share laughs and memories. Eventually, Shane begins to mockingly question Hank as to why his monster hadn't showed up yet. As was typical of it, He likens Hank's claim to people claiming they had seen a UFO flying over the skies of Barley. In response, Hank berates Shane. He then turns over to Abby, revealing he was ready to sell the home and leave Barley for good. He gets up to take a turn with the karaoke machine when out of nowhere, a bizarre monster jumps out and attacks him. The tussle moves to the sitting room, and it's a bloodbath as Hank continuously stabs it until it finally dies. Hank has finally killed his monster. Time for some wine and a wedding proposal. That's going to wrap up this recap. We hope you've enjoyed it. If so, please click the subscribe button with notifications turned on so you don't miss a single video.